Today we are going to talk about the speed of training. How fast should training be going? And specifically 10 things that can affect how fast it goes. Before we get started here, I owe someone an apology. I heard that I've been pronouncing your name wrong, Sai, and I can't believe you didn't say anything. But hopefully I will get it right from here on out. So forgiveness, please, for any mispronunciation. But thank you for being here and for being so supportive always. Hi, Midwest Merchandiser. Welcome back. Anybody else here? Just go on and say hi. Okay, thanks, Sai. I'm going to do it. I am going to mess it up again, but we'll get there. Hey, learning takes time, right? Okay, so if you are joining us for the first time and you don't know me yet, my name is Jennifer Malloway. I am a dog trainer and behavior consultant, and my job is to help you have a more magical relationship with your dog. And a lot of ways, the quality of your relationship has to do with how well we can train them, right? April just says, me. Hi, and Jose, hello. Cool, thank you guys for saying hi, and I hope that today is very helpful. So I would like to start here. So when it comes to dog training, and specifically when it comes to the type of training that is addressing dog behaviors that are a problem for us humans, most people want results like yesterday, right? Just can't go fast enough. Now, most of us are more realistic than that, and we know that training takes time. So I wanted to start off with just a couple of questions to get an idea of where you guys are at. Where do your expectations fall? So I'll start here. Question 1 is, realistically, how long do you think it should take to train a dog? Full stop. And I'll wait a moment in case anybody else wants to throw out a guess or what you think should happen. Yeah, just how long should it take to train a dog? Now, yeah, no, I'll wait. Somebody guess. Be brave. There are no wrong answers here because we are talking about expectations first, right? And we're gonna get to the things that make a difference, but in an ideal world, but realistically, in a realistic ideal world, how long should this take? Anybody? April says, here, I'm going to put this up here. The rest of his life, he probably can always learn new things. That's a really, really good answer. Yeah, I mean, there's always more to teach, right? So if we want to keep teaching, we can absolutely do that for their whole lives. 100%. Sai says forever. Okay, you guys are definitely on the same page, and I love those answers because, I mean, if we enjoy and can benefit from learning for our whole lives, why can't our dogs, right? Those are awesome answers. April's getting ahead of me here. She says for a specific skill, not sure, maybe 2 to 3 months. So that was going to be the follow-up question, is that, and the reason I asked the first question the way I did is because I get asked a lot, like when will my dog be fully trained? That phrase, fully trained, I get asked a lot, and I'm like, it always throws me. I'm like, what does that mean exactly? Because because we all want to teach our dogs different things. Our dogs come to us knowing different things. We all have different expectations of how they are supposed to behave. So fully trained is really, really subjective. So I never know how to answer that. But it made me think that, like, people probably have some idea of how long it should take until at least until they are happy with their dog's behavior. Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. But yeah, the follow-up question was going to be, which April so intelligently like guessed where I was going here, is how long should it take to train a single behavior or a single cue? And that we might be able to drill down a little bit more, but it's still very highly variable, which is what today is all about. What are those variables that affect how long it takes? Gosh, it started just pouring rain here a minute ago, and I'm surprised you guys can't hear it. It is coming down fast. So yeah, so as you can probably tell, like there's no single answer to these questions, but in most cases, the best answer is not fast enough. You know, most of us want that change to happen faster than it ever does, right? Sai says, alert behavior is important to keep it going. It's fantastic they listen. Oh, so true. So it doesn't, but yeah, getting from where we start or where the dog starts to where we're happy, or where, you know, a happy medium, maybe even, it just doesn't happen fast. It doesn't happen as fast as we want. And that is not ever the fault of dogs. And it's not our fault either. But I think that how we get to not fast enough is a result of having our expectations too high. Now, you guys who are participating in this conversation right now seem to be, you know, you have much more realistic expectations of dogs, but not everybody starts there. And so it's worth having that discussion to help people kind of understand what's possible and, you know, what our dogs are capable of, on one hand, and on the other hand, you know, what can we do to speed the process along, because it can sometimes feel just so achingly slow that we want to give up, and we want to turn to, you know, the quick fix and the tools that are just going to stop that naughty behavior in its tracks. You know, we want it to stop today, especially when it's like things that are really bugging us, you know, like for me, those like barking really gets to me, and pulling on the leash. Those are two of my everything else I find very manageable, but those I'm like, we are training this right now, and we're gonna, you know, but we all have those things that's like, you know, and we want results fast. April, coming in with the truth. I totally didn't have realistic expectations until I started fostering and learned how much I myself didn't know. Isn't that journey like, you know, I myself have been on that journey, not through fostering, but just through working with dogs, you know, walking and doing a lot of dog sitting. And I mean, the more we learn, the more it's really cool, isn't it? But you definitely realize like just how much there is to know, which is exciting and daunting, and you know, but yeah, anyway, this is why I'm here, because I think it's so fascinating, and I like to share this stuff with people who are on a similar journey. So yeah, so we wanted to go faster. Learning just doesn't happen that fast, and so if we are going to talk about, you know, I have 10 ways to speed training along, or things to understand, but yeah, in an age of technology that moves at lightning speed, or faster, you know, faster than the speed of light in a lot of cases, it can be really hard to kind of adjust those expectations when we are dealing with the speed of biology, because no matter how good our technology gets, we are still biological beings. Our dogs are still biological beings, or cats or birds or whoever you're working with. other humans. And technology can help us with teaching process, but it's not going to speed up how fast biological beings are capable of change. We are always limited by the fact that we're made up of of genes and cells, and that's just until we become like part robots. That's kind of what we have to deal with. Hey CK, welcome back. Nice to see you too. Hopefully this is interesting. I saw you say yesterday that if next time you get a dog, it might be a Havanese, which is super exciting because I freaking love Havanese. I think they're so adorable and so happy. They're like the happiest dogs I've ever met and really fun to train. So when you get one, hopefully we get to meet it. Anyway, that would be very exciting. Okay, so yes, so we're biological beings. We simply can't move as fast as technology has kind of rewired our brains to think we should expect results. And yeah, so when it comes to training, it can help us to feel better in the process. Like when we have a dog or we have an animal, and we're trying to change their behavior, it can help us feel better through the process by being able to tweak our expectations, to something that's more realistic. It's that alone is not going to speed up the training, but it can help us when we're feeling impatient and we're feeling like just like pulling our hair out sometimes, but let's talk about some of the factors that play a role in how fast that behavior can change or how fast an animal can learn. Number one is simply what we're teaching. It can help us understand, know how to set our expectations. If we understand that some behaviors are inherently more difficult or take longer, and depending on, and different dogs are going to have different capabilities when it comes to learning one task versus another. So like, gosh, like I find, recall to be one of the, it's very straightforward. It's a simple behavior. There's not much to it other than adding in distractions. So as long as we get the rest of the stuff we're going to talk about right, it's a fairly simple, straightforward behavior. So it's not going to take that long. Just as long as, like you guys said, once it's learned, you continue to practice and reinforce it. It's a pretty quick behavior for a dog to pick up. Whereas something like healing, or especially competition healing, where they are required to, it's not just one behavior, but they are required to know, where they are in relation to us and their body orientation and the angle and this changing their speed as we move with them and how to move as we move. They have to understand right turns and left turns and forward and back and inside and outside. Like that's a behavior that is very complex. It's actually, you could break it down into like, I don't know, 20 or 30 different behaviors. So compared with training a recall, you can expect that would take a lot longer. So anybody have anything that you're working on with your dog that you're kind of wondering, like, should this take longer or should this be one of the simpler things? That's something we could kind of talk about. But yeah, just the what's all included in the behavior that you're trying to teach. And we could drill down even more, because sometimes, the way that we define the behavior that we want them to learn, people may have different definitions. I may be fine as long as my dog comes when I call him in the house, but say I never let him off leash outside, so I don't need him to know to come when he's off leash, because it never happens, whereas someone else, maybe wants to go hiking in the mountains off leash or with their dog off leash, and so they're adding in these extra layers of difficulty. So for that person, how they're defining the behavior makes it more complex, which is going to make it take longer. Stay is another good example of how we define the behavior. One person might say, what is a stay? A stay is, I need the dog to just, when I say it, I want them to hold still for 20 seconds, and that's it. Whereas another person might say, I want them to hold it for 5 minutes, even if I'm out of sight or I leave the room, or, we can write out, like, what do we expect out of one cue or one behavior, and what that ultimate goal looks like could be different depending on you, and what you want. So yeah, how the behavior itself and how difficult we want to make it is absolutely going to affect how long it takes. I got to say some hellos to people. I saw you guys chime in. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Jesse. Hi, Karen. Sai says, recall is a tough one for me. Still trying to get them to listen. And hopefully today, well, I don't know. Today should help. And maybe we should do, like maybe a mini series class on recalls, because it's one of my favorite things to teach. But absolutely for some dogs, they can pose a challenge for sure. Especially with those beagles, I know. So number one factor that affects how long training is going to take, how fast it's going to go, is what's the behavior. The second one is their prior learning history. So dogs don't always come to us with a fresh slate, right? Or as a fresh slate. They have absolutely learned from their environment, or perhaps even they had someone else teaching them some things, and sometimes that history didn't align with how we wanted them to act, for dogs who go through rescue or get rehomed in some form or another, say their first family didn't care if they jumped on people. They actually liked it and they encouraged it, and it just wasn't a big deal for them, which is fine. If you don't care if your dog jumps on you, you can absolutely make that rule for your dog. But if that dog, say for some reason or another, has to get rehomed, they go to a new family, and that new family is you, and you're like, I don't want dogs to jump. Beginning to teach that dog not to jump is going to take a little bit longer, because they've had the whole first part of their life to learn that jumping is good and reinforcing and fun, and their people like it. So whatever they've learned before that dog comes to you, and this can absolutely be true even if you got your dog at 8 weeks old, they don't start learning at 8 weeks or 16 weeks, or they start learning the day they're born. So whatever they've learned, and we don't always know, this is something that, like, we don't have control over. It's just, we can't control it, and we may not even know it, and that doesn't really matter. But it's just something to keep in mind if you're feeling frustrated. It's like, this dog may have had years potentially of learning something different, and so that's where we just have to take a breath and have some patience, and do the best job we can of teaching them what we do want. So yeah, their prior learning, it's not something we have control over, but it does affect how long this process takes for us. But that is one of the reasons why I encourage anybody who gets a dog, whether it's a puppy or an adult, to start training right away. Especially when it comes to puppies, a lot of people have questions about, like, when they can start training, and I say, don't wait. don't wait a single moment because those dogs, whether you're actively or aware that you're teaching them or not, those dogs are learning from you. Every moment that they spend with you, they are learning something. And if we're not aware of this, actually, yeah, this is even if you got your dog and you're like, okay, we're gonna start training. We got into a class and it starts in 4 weeks. We'll dawdle, play around a little bit with training until then, but like the real training didn't start until a few weeks later. Just it's something to be aware of, that your dog's going to have 4 weeks of learning something from you, and it may not be what you want them to learn. So I love the idea of people who, especially first-time dog owners, or people who feel that they don't know enough yet to start training right off the bat. I kind of love the idea of people getting like a base knowledge of how learning works, or maybe dog training specifically, before the day they bring that dog home. You don't have to wait. It might feel a little bit silly to like maybe pay somebody, but you don't have to. There are free resources out there. Hey, this is free. But it might feel a little silly to like go to a class without a dog, but you learn so much. And if you're able to start teaching that dog from the moment you get them, that can really help you out, by not having those days and potentially weeks or even months of the dog learning the wrong thing, because then we have to undo that. Hey, welcome, Scott. You guys don't apologize for being late. Hop in anytime. I am happy to have you here. One of my good friends I talked to today, she's like, I could hop in on your live in the middle, but then I feel bad because I don't want to be like the person who's late, so I don't watch them until later. And I'm like, I don't care. Just come and say hi, even if you can only be here for a minute. You guys, it really helps me feel comfortable up here talking, and it just makes me smile to know you're here. So don't apologize. I don't care. Midwest Merchandiser says, my older dog is helping train the puppy. That's fun. That's that's good if your puppy can learn good things from your older dog. For some of us, that could backfire. Sometimes they learn the wrong things from the older dog. But if you've got a really well-behaved older dog who's very good at setting a good example for a puppy, then you're very lucky. That's nice. But yeah, they can absolutely help. So yeah, okay. Prior learning. It turns out I had a lot more to say about that than I thought, but anyway. So number 3 is going to be interesting. So the third thing that can affect how fast a dog learns is prior exposure to harsh training methods. In trainer lingo, we call them aversives. Some of the more common ones you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with are the prong collars, your shock collars, your choke chains, your squirt bottles, your penny shake cans, your just any scolding, or using your hands to force your dog into different body positions. Even people are out there like hitting their dogs with rolled up newspapers, like anything that is punishing or frightening or painful to a dog. If they have spent some of their life learning that way, what those methods inherently, what they're designed to do is suppress behavior. And now that may, in some cases, sound appealing. Like, we absolutely want to suppress behavior, right? Like, if our dog is barking like crazy and we can't stand it, like, we want barking to go away, that, and so suppressing that sort of behavior sounds like a good thing. And it is. We do want that behavior to stop. However, what an animal who learns via those training methods, often as an unintended or maybe even intended side effect, is they kind of those methods are very good at suppressing all behavior. And sadly, for a lot of dogs out there, that is what a lot of people want. They want their dogs to behave less. And just to clarify there, when I use the word behave, I am talking about all behavior. Everything that we do is behavior. No value judgment, no qualifiers. It just, it's not good or bad. If we do things, it's behavior. We are behaving. Whereas we often use that term like, why don't you behave? Or I just wish he would behave. We mean we wish he would behave the way we want. But when I'm talking about those methods and suppressing behavior, I just mean they do less. Anything that, a dead dog can do is not behavior. If a dead dog can't do it, it's behavior. So we like dogs who just lie there and do nothing. Those dogs are very nice to be around sometimes. But it can also be a sign of, what's the, gosh, I wanted to do a whole talk on this one thing, and now I'm blanking on the name. It'll come to me in a moment. But yeah, dogs, most of them are very, they're curious, they're exuberant, they're playful, they're goofy, and they do stuff. And sometimes we don't like that stuff they do. But a dog who feels free to behave and to be who they are is a joy to be around. They're a joy to watch, right? Whereas if we suppress all behavior, they're not really getting to express themselves. They're not really getting to be who they are. I remembered it. Okay. So something that happens a lot with the use of aversive methods is called learned helplessness, which is when a dog or an animal, any being, they come to feel, or they learn that no matter what they do, they can't escape punishment. So they just give up. They're like, well, I don't have any control over my circumstances anyway, so I'm just not going to do anything. And especially, gosh, you guys, it breaks my heart to see some of the dog training reality shows that are out there, because these episodes, a lot of times, they go through and the trainer's like trying to get rid of this bad behavior, and they use aversive methods, and the dog eventually just shuts down. And the way that they portray it in these shows is like, aha, like he's finally, he submits, he's finally acknowledged that I'm the leader, and and so now he's going to be well behaved. The training has succeeded. Where what's actually happened is that what's happened is learned helplessness. That dog has just shut down. And in humans, learned helplessness is often equated with depression. Depression is also, in a way, just it can happen due to us feeling like we do not have control over our circumstances, a lack of access to positive reinforcement, causes us to just not want to do anything. And that can happen on our dogs. And once they've learned that, from the studies, we know that once access to reinforcers, or once a route of escape from punishment becomes available, they still don't do anything. They're just stuck in this kind of like nothing state, because that's what happens. And so for a dog who has been exposed to those methods, trying to then change the way that we're working with them and teach them like, oh, okay, I was doing it wrong, but now we're just gonna give train with food, or we're just gonna, it's gonna be all positive. for that dog to learn, it's going to take longer. It's going to take more patience and more breaking it down a little bit into very fine detail to teach them that they have a path out of that funk, which is maybe a way to put it mildly. But it's a serious. I mean, I talk. I mean, I don't know. I really empathize because having learned this myself, I can see how I may have ended up in depressive states because of, my learning history. It doesn't mean that those dogs cannot learn. Absolutely not. But it does mean that it's going to take longer. So again, a way to maybe adjust our expectations or not even go down that road in the first place. This is something that I have to touch on because I hear it said a lot, people who want those fast results, they want to go to the trainers who promise them they're going to have their dogs fixed like that. It's only going to take this long. They offer guarantees. That's really, really appealing. It's a great marketing message. And somebody who comes to a trainer like myself, who is going to be fully upfront and honest, even when it's not what people want to hear. I can't say, I'm going to fix your dog, or I guarantee we're going to get his behavior to change. It's not ethical to provide those kind of those guarantees. And so it's sometimes it's a more it's a harder sales pitch for me to offer the truth. So people are like, well, I'll just try it that way, and then if that doesn't work, I'll come back to you. And it breaks my heart, not just because those dogs are going to have a bad experience, but because when they do come to me, it's going to take even longer. But there's in some cases, there's not a lot I can do about it, except educate people as much as I can so that they never have to go down that road. So April says, thank you for putting a name to the outcome of aversive training methods. Learned helplessness. Yeah. Never thought about dogs and depression, but it makes sense. I mean, yeah, when I first heard that, it was like, it was one of those light bulb moments for me. It was like, oh my gosh, there's been a lot of that. Like when I, just as I've learned about learning, because again, this is not stuff that is just about dogs. This is about us and about all animals. I'm like, it offers an opportunity for self-reflection about myself and who I am, in addition to how I act now and how I can change and how I can change my own behavior. It's just like, oh, there's all these cool applications. It's why I get so excited about it. But yeah, sometimes it's a real bummer. It's like, but change starts with, the realization of what's happened, right? So, in that sense, it's very helpful. Okay, so that was, all right. We have what the behavior we're teaching is, we have what the dog's prior learning is, we have any prior exposure to aversive training methods. Number 4 is going to be an obvious one, but practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to learn, the faster you're going to learn. There's no getting around this one, right, guys? We have to put in the time of teaching our dogs if we want them to learn new things. And yeah, it's kind of a numbers game. How many times have they rehearsed the behaviors that we want them to do? And we can set this up in a way that speeds up the behavior too, right? Like having the appropriate length and frequency of training sessions. So when we take our dogs to a training class, the traditional model is often, once a week for somewhere, 5 to 8 weeks or something like that, but once a week for an hour. And while that fits, kind of the human flow of things, our schedules, especially when it required us to travel to classes, that hold the transportation time. It's like, well, yeah, I better be there for a while so I can get, so it's worth it for me to go there. But for optimum learning, especially if we're working on a skill like sit and down and stay and recalls, and it actually works a lot better for our dogs, and I think for us, if we do mini training sessions throughout the week, more of them, but much, much shorter. If we can, if we can keep our training sessions short, our dogs are going to be much more likely to pay attention the whole time we're training, and it's going to leave them wanting more. If we train for an hour and they're just over it 10 minutes in, but we keep working on it, they're learning that like training can be kind of a drag. Like I was done and we're still doing this, like I'm bored, and whereas if we train for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute, just like while our coffee's brewing in the morning, we just do a bunch of repetitions and then we're done, and our dog's like that was fun, like can we do more? If we leave them wanting more, then the next session and the next session, they're just going to be like, they want it, they want to learn, they want to work, because the percentage of the time that we spend on it is fun. 100% of the time it's fun. Whereas in the case of if it were 10 minutes out of 60, which these are totally arbitrary numbers, I'm making that up, but just as an example, that's, I can't do that math on the fly, but that's 1/6 of the time that's spent being fun. So yeah, the higher percentage of the time that we spend on it, if we're making it fun for our dogs, the more likely they're going to want to work. And that, oddly enough, maybe is going to bleed into the rest of our daily life with our dog outside of the training session. If they're like, man, let's do that training thing again, can I like, say you worked on sit, we're working on sit, that's the trick of the week, and we're spending 2 minutes on it every morning, then outside of that training session, that dog might be like, hey, that thing we did this morning, like that was really fun, and it really paid off, you gave me treats for it, that was cool, like what if I do it now, or now, and they start offering those behaviors because it's really fun for them. So yeah, getting just the amount of practice, we got to get it in, we got to do it at all, but also breaking it down into smaller sessions. And I think this is nice because it makes it easier for us too. Like I mean, you guys, me, as much as I love training, if to be effective, I had to set aside a full hour to work on stuff with Izzy, I'd probably be much less likely to actually do it. Whereas I know, I scoop out his breakfast in the morning, and I know, like, okay, I can take a handful, I can do a bunch of reps of whatever it is that we're working on, and then go about my day. And it only takes a few minutes, because that's a much lower barrier for me to actually just do it. Means it's going to get done. And because quantity matters, the practice that the dog gets matters. If we lower that barrier for ourselves, it's just gonna happen. And sometimes we expect, like, we go to that class and I just say we get that sit in 20 times during that hour, whereas when you go home, like, you might feel, okay, we've done our training for the week, we don't practice it that much. Not everybody's like that. So, I mean, I know that you guys practice, but if you devote little itty bitty increments of time to getting a ton of repetitions in, it's going to go a long way. It's actually going to go a lot further than the whole hour, strangely, but it happens. One final note about just getting the practice in, getting those repetitions in, is if you did 20 reps in 2 minutes versus 20 reps in an hour, you got the same number of reps in. But that means that those 20 reps in your 2 minutes are going to happen in very quick succession. So if we work really, really fast with our dogs, it's another way to hold their attention for the time that you've got them. And it matters. It's not the length of time that you're training exactly, but it's the number of repetitions that you squeeze into that time, which just to kind of demonstrate. Well, Dizzy's passed out over there, but look at him. Wait. He's not going to work with me right now, but just to just kind of illustrate what I mean is, when I've taught classes, and you know, and it's hard to be a student in training classes too, because you're trying to listen to the instructor and then you got to work with your dog, but there's still like things to troubleshoot, and there's a lot going on, and your dog is distracted, and it's like it's difficult. It's a difficult environment to learn in, and it's even more difficult because you're like, I'm trying to learn. I'm the human that's trying to learn from the teacher, and then I'm also trying to teach. So I'm doing 2 roles. It's a lot. But at the end of the day, like, what ends up actually happening is, I see from the instructor's perspective, is people will just, these are my sit cues. As the hand signal. You know, they'll ask their dog to sit. It might take a few seconds to like get them in there, and they sit and they get their reward. And then you kind of stop and you look around and see what everybody else is doing. Like, are their dogs doing it? Like, okay, oh, my dog got distracted, and you got to bring him back. And like, okay, let's do another one. And in the midst of all that happening, you know, 20 seconds have gone by, or a minute's gone by, even, I don't know. Which means that it's slow. The pace is very slow. Where if we were going like this is what it looks like when I'm training Dizzy with a new behavior, is, say it's sit. You know, it's like, sit, you get your reward. Great. Sit, we get your reward. Okay, great. Sit, you get your reward. Oh, he's still sitting. Stand. Great. Okay, sit. You know, it's one right after the other. And it really, really helps. It's a simple change for us, and it does take some practice to get that flow going, especially because you're still learning the like mechanical skills possibly, but going faster can really, really help. And I've kind of merged my number 4 practice with my number 5, which is what trainers call rate of reinforcement. And that is literally how many seconds are passing between the dog getting treats. Or if you're using a game of tug as a reward, or if you're using a throw of a ball as a reward, how many seconds pass between each reward? And this is one of the reasons that we say using food to train is the most efficient way, because while some dogs will work very happily for tug or chasing a ball, or other life rewards, the seconds between the times that we are physically capable of giving out those rewards, it's slower, and there's almost no way to speed it up. Whereas treats, you know, you give them, the dog swallows them, you're ready to go on to the next repetition, so that we can get that rate of reinforcement really, really fast. You may have noticed, not for all dogs, but for many, many dogs, and especially puppies, they're fast. They're just, I mean, it's as simple as that. They're fast. They're faster than us, and their attention's all over the place, and they're doing one thing and then the next thing, and they're just always moving. And so I sometimes think of like, I sometimes imagine that, like, anybody here watch like superhero movies, you know, Superman, The Flash, like any shows like that where there's a superhero who has like super speed is their superpower. And you see those scenes where they're moving fast and it like slows everybody else down. Tell me if I'm talking, if I'm if you're not following me, and there's no sense going this route, but if you like that sort of thing, please let me know in the comments. But I just watched oh, CK says all the time, I'm just not watching the 4-hour Snyder Cut. So you probably know we just watched that, and there are some scenes like that in the movie. And this is exactly how I imagine dogs must think, or dogs must see us sometimes. Like, they're just so much faster than us, like physically, that it must seem like when we're doing things, it's just like in slow motion, and and they're just like, like, move it, human, So April says, yes, bring on the superhero. Okay, good. Yeah, April, she says, when I give Norin his treat while doing side during our walks, he's ready to eat his reward faster than I can dole them out. Absolutely. I can't believe it either, CK. I mean, okay, I have an admission here, or a confession, and this is, don't judge me, but you're not even watching it, so you won't judge me, but I was playing a video game at the same time. I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed it or stuck with it the whole time if if that had been my only focus. But also, I haven't played any video games in like 20 years, so, or maybe more. So this is like I'm in a weird place. Anyway, 4 hours is way too long for a movie. 2 hours is like, that's a sweet spot, I think. Anyway, so yeah, they are fast. Dogs are fast, and we, in comparison, are very slow. And so maybe if I give you some concrete numbers, that can help you set a good pace. So what I learned from my mentor, Jean Donaldson, about a good pace for a dog who is new to training, or a green dog, as we call them, meaning they're learning things, but they're learning how to learn also. Did I not talk about that? Oh my gosh, is this not even on the list? It is not. We got to go back, guys, but hang on. Okay. So yeah, if they're new to training, a good pace is they should be getting a treat on average about every 6 seconds. That means 10 treats a minute. And a good way to find out, because sometimes it's hard to gauge, like, what's happening. But what I did as part of my training to become a trainer, is we had to record ourselves on video, and then go back and you can take a 1-minute chunk out of your training, and count how many treats did your dog get in that time, just to give you a baseline of like where you're at typically. Now, yeah, see, every 6 seconds, it sounds like a lot, right? It is a lot. And sometimes, depending on, again, going back to what I'm teaching and how difficult it is for my dog, Dizzy, we're working on a trick right now that is very, very difficult for him, and is probably difficult for a lot of dogs because of the difficulty of the behavior and because of how fast Dizzy is. My rate of reinforcement has to go even way up. I'm giving him, like, right now in the beginning, it's a new thing. What it is that I'm trying to teach him is, so I taught him to stand. This is going to sound silly, but there's a use for it, I promise. But first, I taught him to stand in front of me, which is, I think, a really, really great thing to teach a dog. You'd think, like, obviously a dog knows how to stand in front of you, but for a lot of owners, like, they would love it if their dog would just stand in front of them, right? Instead of like being all over the place. Oh my gosh, like, what's over here? What's over there? Oh, you're still here. You were still training. Like, they're, moving all around. many owners would love if their dog would just stand there and wait for instruction, right? Or dogs who jump on people, if we taught them to stand, they can't be jumping if they're standing, right? So there are practical uses. We trained this because I want to use it in canine musical freestyle, maybe one day if we ever get to that level, if we ever get to compete, because Daisy's not going to get to go to those things if he's still reactive to dogs. But anyway, in the meantime, we're working on the skills. But anyway, I taught him to stand in front of me in precisely this angle. I don't want his body off to the side. I want him to stand in front of me. So now what we're working on is I need him to turn around and stand in front of me, but facing the same direction I am, which is insanely difficult for a dog. Not only do they have to stand still and have a precise orientation in relation to their human, which means they have to be still paying attention to what's going on. But a dog who is used to being rewarded for sitting or standing in front of you, looking at you, to get them to understand that they get rewarded when they look away from you is like, you're going to break their brain. It's very difficult. All of that to describe why, when we are working on this today, those treats, instead of coming every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of every 6 seconds, I have to be giving him treats like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, come back. Ready? Go again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, so fast. So fast. So that was maybe more detail than anybody wanted, but my point is that how many seconds between treats plays a role in how fast the dog is going to learn, because it's going to hold their attention better. And if your dog is not paying you any attention, they can't be learning what you're trying to teach them. You have to have their attention. And so speeding up and offering more rewards is going to go a long way. And it's not like that forever, right? Like I said, today, that's how fast we're having to do this. But very quickly, like once he gets the idea that if he stays there facing that way, the treats are going to come to him. He doesn't have to worry about it. Then I can start to space him out more, which goes back to the more experience your dog has in learning, in training, the better they get at learning. So this is kind of going back to number 2, that prior learning history. When I talked about that point, number 2, I was kind of talking about like if their learning history had kind of worked against your goals now. However, it can also work the other way, right? If you just get a dog and they haven't had any experience in formal training whatsoever, you're gonna have to work faster. That rate of reinforcement has to be pretty high. Like, every 6 seconds is pretty high. But as they learn, you can get slower. You can take your time more, because the dog understands the system. See, the thing is, when they learn the first thing you teach them, whether that's sit, whether that's stand in front of you, whether that's what's the first thing you like to teach a dog? Very curious to hear that. I know what we typically teach in our classes, but when you get a new dog, what's the first thing that you like to teach? Because the first thing often becomes their default behavior, and being selective and choosy about that can be strategic. Anyway, April says, this makes so much sense about the learning history. Yeah. So when they learn that first thing, they're not just learning how and when to sit. They are also learning the system. They're learning that when they sit, they can earn rewards, that their behavior at all can earn them rewards. They are learning how that reward is going to be delivered. They are learning how your body language, how you're going to communicate these things. They're not just learning the sit, they're learning how to learn. And the more things you teach them, the faster they get at each successive behavior. So like if I had tried to teach Dizzy this face the other way trick, if that was the first thing I tried to teach him, like he'd be like, "What is going on, lady?" Like it probably would have taken faster. It would have taken longer than I hope it's going to take. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. We've been working on it for like 3 days, but anyway. CK says, first things she likes to teach are name, outside, potty, and sit, stay, and come. Awesome. Yeah, that's a name is actually a really good first one. I can't believe I forgot that. But yeah, and potty for sure. That's absolutely a priority. April says, the way dogs learn is akin to how we learn. We learn different methods from different teachers, strategies to be efficient over time. Yeah, absolutely. And no, oh, brain, don't do this to me. I hate it when I have like a really good idea to share and hopefully it comes back. Anyway, oh, yes, okay. So if you don't know me that well, you may not know that I'm a swing dancer, specifically Lindy Hop. I love partner dancing in general, but especially Lindy Hop. And the parallels or the similarities between learning a partner dance and a dog learning, or heck, even us learning to train our dogs, I just see these parallels, and I just think it's kind of a beautiful thing. It's interesting at the very least. Anybody else done any partner dancing that this might relate to? Because it's just interesting, right? Like, so if you've never learned any type of partner dancing, or any dancing at all rather, and you just start out, you're just going to an introduction class, in most cases you're not even going to dance with the partner yet. You're going to learn the footwork, you're going to learn the how you're supposed, what your posture is supposed to be like, and where you're supposed to hold your arms, and how you're supposed to move, like you're learning the physical skills that you have to kind of get into your body. April's done Latin dancing. Awesome. That was the first partner dance that I learned, was salsa. And I love it. If at some point in time I switched, or I stopped for a while, and then I was like, I want to try swing dancing, so I got involved in that. But I love salsa, and Latin dancing is fun. Do you get to go, or, well, no, not anymore, but were you going before last year, April? I'm curious. God, I haven't been salsa dancing in so long. Anyway, but yeah, you first go, and you're learning these skills. You're learning how to move your body, and that's the thing about dog training. For the human, is that dog training is a mechanical skill, just like dancing. It's not. It's not. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, this is really number 7 out of our 10 factors that influence how fast our dogs learn, is the clarity of communication. So like I just said, dog training it's a mechanical skill. It's a physical skill, like what we do, how we move with our bodies, how fast we deliver that reinforcement, and our timing, and our, that matters. It matters because it affects how clearly we can communicate what we want to our dogs. And yeah, again, with the dancing, like our timing, how we move, those are kind of prerequisites. Before we can teach the dog, we have to know how to move our bodies, and when, and so it's just this beautiful thing. So you go to a dance class and you learn like these basic movements, and you kind of get that drilled into your body before you ever even then, like, okay, now we're going to partner up. Now you bring the dog out. And it's one reason why I really encourage, people, the idea of working on some of these skills before the dog's in front of you. If you're especially if you're new to training and you haven't, like, your first dog, or you haven't done this before, working on, what is my, at least in your head, visualize, what's my body going to be doing, as I ask him how to sit, as I deliver the treats, if he gets distracted, actually going through the physical motions. It sounds ridiculous, and you're like, you wouldn't do that in front of people because it looks ridiculous. I mean, I get it. But how clear we are able to communicate with our dogs is a huge factor in how fast they're going to pick up what we want them to, right? So if we can kind of get those motions in our bodies before we bring out the dog and bring out the food, we'll be much more effective teachers, right? And then, of course, the dance metaphor can go on forever because there's so much overlap, because in a partner dance, you're like, it's a way of communicating without words. You are just using your body language and your reading of the other person's body language to continue this conversation. And that is exactly what dog training is. It's a conversation. It's not just I have information and I need you to know it. It's absolutely, I'm going to move this way and hope that you pick up on those cues and, like, oh yes, you got it, great reinforcement, and let's continue on to the next one. It's cyclical, which again goes back to that rate of reinforcement. It's like, as soon as we finish one, it's like a loop. It's a circle. As soon as we finish one repetition, okay, great, we start the next one, and then you get your reinforcement and we start the next one. And it's like, and dancing, it's obviously more complicated than that. It's not, a circle sounds so simple, but yeah, it requires us to kind of adjust and shift, and based on the information that our dog is giving back to us as we are training, which is why, like, when we try and make it sound so simple when you're just learning, but there's so much that goes into it. And again, just like your dog, the more that you train, the more you're going to be able to be clear with your dog, which, again, it's both of you are learning, and the more you do this, the better you both get separately. And the dance metaphor goes on. Oh my gosh, I just I love the parallels here. So the other cool thing about this metaphor or analogy, if you will, is once you've trained one dog, and you've climbed that skill ladder, you've gotten really good at working with that dog, or say you learned how to dance with one partner and you guys are just you're in the flow, you're really good at dancing together. You go to switch partners, or you go to train another dog, and it's you still have those mechanical skills, but because it's a conversation, and because this partner is going to be different, it's the dance is going to feel different. The training is going to feel different. You're going to have to adjust based on your new partner and the feedback that they give you, because we're all individuals and we have different styles and ways of moving and learning histories, and so when you go to work with that next dog, it doesn't instantly mean that you're going to be perfect at working through that, or training that next dog right off the bat. You're going to be a heck of a lot better than when you started with the first one. But it doesn't mean it's going to flow perfectly. You know, when you're dancing with a new partner, you're like, oh, like, okay, this feels different. And, but you get there quicker. You get much better, you get to that point where it just feels natural and flowy quicker with each new partner that you work with. Oh, okay, April. She says, no, it's not ridiculous. Olympians train in the basics and use visualization. So why not us with anything, even dogs? Awesome. Okay, great. I'm glad that got the stamp of approval from April. Yeah, absolutely. Visualizing and practicing those. It's a physical skill before the dog comes out. Super, super helpful. Another thing that you kind of touched on that is another layer to this dance dog training metaphor, is that focus on the basics, right? With a dance or with any skill, really. I mean, it could be playing a musical instrument, it could be cooking, it could be, I mean, what are your guys' hobbies? Like, yeah. Give me what are you guys into? What's a skill that you've gotten really into learning? And let's see if this concept applies, because the way I see it, or at least anything I've tried to learn, you know, it sounds like, okay, you learn the basics, and then you learn, you know, your intermediate skills, and then you learn your advanced skills, and you climb up this ladder. However, at least in dance, because that's my thing, it doesn't matter what level of class I go to. You know, intermediate, it could be an advanced class, it could be I'm not a pro. I've not been to like a pro class, but even if I did, they are always, no matter what level you're in, they are always going to focus on the basics. You have to have those foundation skills, and it can be so boring, and anybody who wants to learn a new skill, just like, they want to get past that phase so quickly, because they want to do the cool stuff and the flashy stuff, and you know, and I can totally relate to that. Like, I'm no different than anybody else. Like, I want to get past the basics, but I know that in dog training, as in dancing, if you are not really good, and if you do not continually practice those basics, you're going to be sloppy up here. You're not going to be at that Olympian level, right? Basics are so important. CK says golfing. Oh, okay. So to be honest, I don't know anything about golfing, really. So would this still apply? Yeah, like, I assume, like, no matter how you get at golfing, like, you still have to be really good at those basic skills. Otherwise, yeah. Karen says, I love woodworking, taking something old and giving it life again. Oh, I love that, Karen. That's really cool. That would be a really neat skill to have. Again, so tell me, guys, so since these are beyond my, or outside my realm of knowledge at all, does this apply? CK says, yes, it applies to golfing. Karen, does it apply to woodworking? Anyway, yeah, so the focus on the basics, having those mechanical skills in your body, leads to clarity of communication with our dogs, which is super, super important, and really affects how fast our dogs learn these skills. Live streaming. Yes. Oh my gosh. See, this is perfect. This is one area where I am very much still a noob, and I'm still you know, I'm still in that, like, very basic level, and it just feels like you're never gonna get past it. But yeah, you gotta get those foundation skills. April says, ooh, for any readers out there, which we love book recommendations. What are we getting to? A really good book to get into types of learners and those who become masters is Mastery by George Leonard. Ooh, okay. Wait, I gotta write that down so I don't forget, because I do love reading. I love my book recommendations. Mastery George Leonard. By the way, April, have you continued or have you finished reading How Emotions Are Made? I didn't get around to rereading it yet, but I just love that book. Off topic. Anyway, okay, so that was number 7, our clarity of communication via our mechanical skills. Number 8, our awareness of environmental rewards. So in our dog's world, we are not the only things that provide reinforcement, right? The environment provides reinforcement of its own accord, and we may sometimes have control, but not usually. But we can at least be aware of if the rewards that our dog is getting from the environment are conflicting with our training goals and what we're trying to do. It can bring awareness to maybe we need to train in a different environment or somehow control those environmental rewards. We often call these environmental rewards distractions, but anything that our dog is paying attention to is potentially a reward or a reinforcer. It just so happens that reinforcers that we don't want our dog to get, we just call them distractions. So yeah, we have to just be aware of this. And the environmental rewards can come from the external environment, such as maybe smelling a bush, you know. If the dog pulled you over to that bush so that they could smell those smells, the smells provided reinforcement for the behavior of pulling on the leash. But they also could be internal, right? So when our dog has to go to the bathroom, if they go to the bathroom on the carpet, they might be, internally reinforced by that feeling of relief from emptying their bladder. I'm trying to think of another maybe better internal reward, and I've lost it, but or it could just be nope, I don't know. But yeah, our dogs, and we have an internal environment, which has to do with our feelings and our perceptions, and then we have stuff that is coming from the external environment, from the outside world. Karen says, I would say yes. It's almost like dancing. You have several steps in woodworking to get it back to the way to get it back to the way it used to. Yeah, I can't even imagine how difficult that is. Like that's an art form that it would take a lot for me to get good at that. I'd be starting at negative numbers, I don't know, of skills. April says, bushes are my nemesis right now. Working on Nora not pulling to every single bush. Yeah, that's a lot of dogs. Or for some dogs, it's the lamppost, or any vertical surface is a huge draw for dogs. So we just want to be aware what are the environmental rewards or distractions that could be potentially rewarding our dog for a behavior that is opposite to what we want them to learn. When it's and leash walking nicely on a leash is one of those skills where this really, really applies, because we have to walk our dogs, right? We have to get them out, which means we are going to be competing with those environmental reinforcers. And what that means is we're in competition, right? It means that we really have to up our game. If we train with kibble in the house, kibble's less likely to work outside, at least if we're in an environment where, we've got the bushes. Maybe if we walk down a different street, that's one way that we could change the environment. That might work for some dogs. For other dogs, who knows? Maybe there's different smells on that street that are just as distracting. This is where, learning your individual dog and what works and doesn't work for them goes a long way toward streamlining your training. So yeah, those environmental reinforcers, if they are rewarding your dog for a behavior that is opposite what you're wanting them to learn, you're playing a game of tug with the environment, right? The dog gets rewarded for pulling by getting to smell that bush. Then you have to do even more training to get them back to, oh no, it's more reinforcing to just walk nicely next to you. And it's this tug of war, which is why it's so important to not follow your dog if they're pulling. What I like to do at least with that issue, just here, training tip for leash walking, is if you're walking along and your dog hits the end of the leash where there's tension, I immediately turn and walk the other way. And there's more to it that you can do, but at the very least what that does is it prevents them from being reinforced by the environment, because if pulling makes them go the other way, they don't get that environmental reinforcement. But then what I like to do is, hey, good night, Jose. Thanks for coming. See you next time. Yes. So what I also like to do is, if a dog pulls, and we you turn, now we're going the other way, and if they're walking nicely alongside and I know they really want to smell that bush, we'll make another U-turn and I will run with them to the bush that they wanted to smell, keeping pace so that the dog, he never hits the end of the leash. So it might require me to go faster for that time, but it means that I can use that environmental reinforcer to reward the behavior I want. You can go smell it as long as you don't pull, right? Leash walking is such a tricky one. CK says figure 8 walking. Yup. We do a lot of that when we're teaching loose leash walking. And yeah, they learn, how to turn, inside turn, outside turn, and they get used to us kind of changing directions, which means they have to pay more attention. But this isn't to talk about loose leash walking. We'll do that. We'll do that maybe next week or the week after, because there's so much. Anyway, okay, so that was number 8, environmental rewards, just being aware of what is reinforcing your dog and for what behaviors. Number 9, environmental stressors. So we have environmental stressors, right? If you're studying for whatever, most of us have gone to school at one time in our lives or another. If you are trying to study and you've got other stuff going on in your house that is making it difficult, maybe you've got siblings or kids who like to run around and make noise. They're not studying, they're just having fun, but that noise is making it very difficult for you to focus. That might be an environmental stressor. Hello, baby. Hi. The real star of the show is here, guys. Good morning. Hi, Stinky. Oh, I love you. What else might be a stressor? Yeah, look who's awake. And there he goes on his box. Other things that might be, distractions for sure might be environmental stressors. But also this again can go back to like internal and external. People running around yelling in the house, it would be an external stressor, but maybe you are just something else is going on in your life that's weighing heavily on you. It means you've got like just icky feelings, that's making it harder to focus. That is going to slow down learning. Absolutely. So we have these things. They happen all around us every day. and they can be extreme or they can be mild. And the same goes for our dogs too. They say they've had a stressful day. Say they went to daycare, or you took them to the dog park and they had a scary incident with another dog at the dog park. They're going to have cortisol coursing through their blood, and that doesn't go away right away, right? So I mean that might last for days. So they might have this internal state that's making it harder for them to learn or to focus on something totally irrelevant, and things like that can absolutely apply. That's something that might be an internal one that we're less aware of, but there absolutely can be other external stressors, right? If you're working on loose leash walking outside, but your dog is scared of something, I don't know. Say your dog is scared of other dogs, and you're outside and you're focusing on walking on leash, but like there's a dog at the end of the street, someone else has their dog out, and your dog is like, they're constantly, just checking, like, what are they up to? Are they coming closer to me? Like they kind of have to keep an eye out for something else that is like alarming to them or scary or stressful. That is going to make it very hard for them to focus, which is going to make it very hard for them to learn. And so, yeah, internal and external environmental stressors can absolutely make it hard for a dog to pick up on skills. And finally, we're here, guys. We're at the end. Your individual dog, they are unique creatures just as we are, and they're not robots. They do not all come into the world with the same skill set, the same capabilities, the same, like, they're absolutely individuals. And people love to talk about like how the intelligence of dogs, and sometimes it gets talked about in this way that's like, how smart are dogs? They lump dogs as a species into one bubble, and like, what do they know? What do they not know? And we treat them as if they're just like, they come into the world all the same. But most of us know that that's not actually true. But then on the flip side, people love to talk about like, well, how smart is my dog? My dog is, more intelligent than, or this breed is more intelligent than that breed. But that's not, it's, ooh, that gets tricky to talk about. So some dogs are definitely, in their nature, just more, they might be more motivated to work for certain rewards, whatever you have to offer. Some of them are, it's in their genes to they just want to receive instruction, and so they will work all day no matter what. Talking about this guy, and other dogs just that's not their preference. And oftentimes those dogs that don't like to just do whatever we say or don't like to work all day, they get labeled as less intelligent, and the dogs who do get labeled as more intelligent. It doesn't necessarily mean that their skill at learning, is that uneven. It just means that, we might have to adjust our reinforcers to suit that individual. We have to maybe even adjust our training plan. If and this is true for our human learners too, if we are not, as a teacher, if we are not willing to adjust the way we teach, or the speed at which we teach different skills, it's going to make it impossible for our learners to learn. And so it requires flexibility on our part, but also there is just this factor of how fast will they pick up on different things. And some dogs again, this goes back to number one and what you're teaching, right? Like some dogs will pick up on some skills super, super fast, but when you try and teach them something else, it's like, their brain left them or something, whereas a different dog, who maybe got labeled as dumb or, something, maybe they're like, oh, that's a piece of cake. It's just, they will learn different things at different speeds. It's not always like, oh, sit is easy, recall's easy. No, absolutely not. Recall might be easy for some dogs and hard for others. So it's this interplay of, my dog's an individual and is gonna have natural the words are leaving me today. It starts with an A. Natural, nope, sorry guys. Anyway, they're just gonna be naturally pick up faster with some things than others, and that's something we don't have control over, but it helps us to have more patience and grace when we're working with our dogs. So that is it. This has been a very long stream today, but if you're still here with me, thank you so much. Hopefully this has been interesting. You see, it's not abilities. There's a word. Anyway, sometimes, but abilities is a good substitute anyway for that. It's not affinity. It's gonna bug me. Doesn't it bug you when like you're like, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I know words, but your dog might have moments like this too, where they're like, I feel like I know what they're asking of me, but I just don't get it right now, Aptitudes. Thank you. Thank you, April. Aptitudes. That's the word. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I don't know. Hopefully you guys found this as interesting as I do. Hi, Wagging Tails Dog Training. If you're just joining us, go back. This has been a really interesting one. And if you're working with dogs, you maybe already know this, or maybe there's something in here to learn and improve. If you haven't already, anybody joining us for the first time, wait, I hit 140 subs. Someone subbed. Thank you. I was just about to say, if you haven't already, love it if you hit subscribe, like the video, share the video, and come back next time, because these conversations are really fun for me. Hopefully they're fun for you too. All right, dinner time. You guys enjoy. I will see you on Friday. Bye-bye.